Yesterday, before sleep, I was feeling that I needed to call upon the runes, that I needed to call upon Odin as well to guide me in both drawing the rune and understanding it. So I did something simple, something small, just a little piece of white sage. I let it burn for a little while and let it burn before Odin, my statue of Odin, my idol of Odin. I said, Odin, Alfadir, the word woof, I call upon you to aid me in drawing the runes and in finding the truth therein. Hail Odin, Alfadir, the word woof, Jagadrotin. And I let that little piece of white sage burn out in front of Odin. And with that little bit of offering and previous connection to Odin, I then drew a rune from my rune bag. Now these runes are very special. I don't draw them just for anything. I won't even draw one now. But in here are runes that I cut this branch, then I cut it into many pieces, and then I carved the runes upon these pieces, upon these circular pieces, and then I burned the runes in. Then I anointed them with my blood, and then I painted them all red. This process is how you create a rune set. Once again, I don't really want to draw one, but what I can draw is Ratosker, which is the skull of a squirrel that my dogs killed many years ago. I decided to harvest the skull by cutting off its head and then hanging the head from a tree in a bag so that ants would find it and clean the skull for me. And Ratatosker in Norse mythology is that little squirrel that runs up and down the tree delivering messages from the eagle and to the dragon. Some could say even delivering boasts and insults. But upon the forehead of Ratatosker, I carved, well, etched, engraved the layout of the 9 dimensions along Yggdrasil. And that skull sits always in my rune bag. And it's good to make your own runes. It's good to have a special bag and to keep the runes tied in the bag while not in use, so that the power is kept in, so that the magic stays firm. And after I drew the rune from the bag, I took a piece of parchment, a white piece of parchment, and I looked upon the rune, and it was manas. So manas, it has a little bit different meaning to me than it does to others. Manas to me is looking within yourself. It's 2 Wunja runes, 2 capital P's, basically gazing within at each other. 2 joys from different perspectives, gazing at each other. Like 2 parts of ourself, 2 sides of our brain, looking at each other and seeing the reflection of each other and joining as a result. And what manas also means to me is, it is the rune of man, obviously. Many say that it is the rune of various deities, Heimdall, chief and foremost, however. Heimdall being the god who proliferated man by mating with all kinds of different human beings, different classes, different ranks of human beings to create all the different kinds of human beings that we see before us. The literality of this story is up to your interpretation. But with Heimdall comes perception, comes gazing across the bridge of time, of space, of dimensions. He looks upon the rainbow bridge, he guards the rainbow bridge, and he waits until the dead and until the Jotun cross it at Ragnarok. And Ragnarok will come one day. But in his sight, he is also a god of consciousness, of self-awareness, of self-understanding, of personal identity. A lot of people think that Manas is the rune of your place in society and your relationship to others and just where you fit in. And it most certainly is a rune of that. And when I drew this rune, that's what I was thinking about. What is my place? Is the path that I am walking going to lead somewhere that leads to fulfillment, that leads to fulfillment in this world? Because I know my spiritual path. I know my path with the dead, with the gods, with the spirits. And I even know the stages beyond this life and the journey that I will take. But I've never found a place here within society. And I had questions about this, wonderings upon this, and a contemplation of myself in relation to society as a result. That is when I drew Manas. Once again, Manas. So I like to have handmade paper that is crafted by hand and is kind of rough. You can order all kinds of parchment. Usually I use something that's not white, but I found that this white and handcrafted parchment is very good, and I have multiple pieces of it. But I pierced my finger and inscribed Manas upon this, saying Manas, 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 as I inscribed this rune. And then after that, I gathered a certain oil, fast luck oil, and while saying Manas on the same finger that I pricked, this is it, just use a piercing needle so no scar, a little bit of fast luck oil, and then traced Manas upon this piece of parchment. And as I traced, I said Manas, Manas, Manas. And what I did next is I folded this once towards myself and then another time towards myself and placed it under my pillow. So I kept it under my pillow as I slept, as I dreamed, and I did dream. And I don't always dream like this. So as I was dreaming, I had the same questions in my mind. And what I dreamed of is a few things. One, I dreamed of Lakota. In the dream, I realized, and so I was explaining to somebody, this is Lakota spirit stick. And it had kind of like a screw cog in the middle, but it was a stick. And then it had this like screw level. And then there's this little cog that spun along it. And I said, to spin the cog to the very top is an insult. And don't spin it to the bottom, but you spin it in between. And I kept on spinning it up and down this spirit stick, whatever the spirit stick was. I've never heard of it or seen it, or I don't know if it's Lakota or not, but that's what I was saying in the dream and spinning this little cog up and down the stick. But never trying to reach the top or the bottom. Now, I was also inspired in the dream to explain how the god Thor, that he went through the same trials that human beings have to suffer in this life and eventually fail and die due to these trials. Eventually, you know, the trial of wrestling the old woman and failing, couldn't even wrestle her down. He was beaten by this old woman. That was old age itself. He was drinking he was drinking from a drinking horn. It was in the hall of Utgard Loki, and he was challenged just like his brother Loki was. And they were challenged all these challenges. And, you know, he said, outdrink this other person, you know, finish this horn and beat this other person at drinking. And he tried, and he couldn't finish the horn. He couldn't beat that person. That horn, turns out Utgard Loki had connected it to the sea. And he created a huge amount of liquid gone from the sea. He thought it was beer, he thought it was ale. But Utgard Loki, with his illusions, he had actually made it the sea, and he was not able to change the sea. He was not able to change the sea of time, of, you can call it the vastness of space. He was not able but to affect it, but a tiny bit. He was defeated by it. The old woman he was wrestling thought it was just an old woman, but it turned out to be old age herself, and he didn't beat her. He couldn't even lift the paw of this cat that was in Utgard Loki's hall. And this paw of this cat was strength, was the immenseness of infinity and its strength against us, against a single individual, against a god himself. And I was explaining this, and there's other interpretations of this story, but and Thor didn't know what these were every time. He just kept on losing, just like us. We keep on losing a lot of the time. We don't know why. We don't know what we're fighting really. A lot of the time we're fighting everything, and that's a problem. But I was explaining this, and I was inspired, and I was explaining this to various people in the form of some kind of shaman, and it all was very relevant to my relationships to society, my relationship to the world. No matter how sure I am and who I am as an individual and along my spiritual path, I can't expect to beat the world. If you're going against the whole world, you're going against the whole earth, or you're going against the whole universe, you should expect to fail, and I can expect to fail. But as I contemplate these things, and as I contemplate other parts of the dream, I start to think about my place in society, and I start to realize some things. These realizations are ongoing and personal, but these are the parts that I can share. Mainly what I wanted to explain to you, I'm going to talk about a rune and a dream. And the rune that I placed underneath my head as I slept, as I inscribed it upon this paper, like I said, was indeed manas. And the oil that I used was fast luck oil, very cinnamony. You can get it from Art of the Root on Amazon, but there's also other forms of fast luck oil. But this rune led me through my dream with Odin's help, and through realization and into the contemplations that I'm having now. I would suggest that you create your own runes. You draw them after little offerings. Doesn't have to be big, tiny piece of white sage. And white sage isn't necessarily Norse. I combine a lot of these things. I wouldn't say that I'm a Puritan as far as Reconstructionism goes or Norse paganism goes, but I combine a lot of different things. But I would like to say that the runes are primordial spirits that we reach out to. They're not just unconscious powers or fragments of magic that we weave together to create something great. They are primordial spirits, and I treat them as such, and so I get a lot from them. And when I draw a rune, if I'm just drawing one, that's powerful. If I draw more and have a certain layout, that's even more powerful. But our conscious relationship to the runes, to these primordial spirits, is paramount if we really want to connect the fabric of reality. They were before the Jotun, they were before the giants. And then Odin and his kind were after the giants. Odin, when he reached into Mimir's well, he grabbed the runes. He was grabbing threads, but those runes had been there for a long time. They were the first things that everything formed around. The well itself, of consciousness, of fate of the multiverse, formed around the runes. They are older than Odin. They are older than the Jotun. And if you treat them as such, and treat them as spirits primordial, they will speak to you in wondrous ways. Try drawing a rune. If you don't draw this one, you can try the process. If you want to put manas on a piece of paper and fold it, like I said, put it under your pillow. Let's say you just put it on a piece of paper and just fold it. And don't use the oil, don't use your own blood. Put it under your pillow and dream. Think, have a question in your mind. You might want to try that. At any rate, this has just been a video about a rune and a dream. I hope this has been interesting. I hope all of you have a wonderful day.